it's Clarissa. We are back in the limelight yet another week with another great interview. Lots to learn here, especially about healthy brains, healthy ways of thinking, healthy ways of taking care of our brain, which is something that we all should be concerned about, especially because it's kind of new, if you will, only coming to the forefront in the last, I'm going to go 10 years maybe. You didn't hear much about it before then, but now we're hearing an awful lot about it. And I have the absolute #1 specialist in the world on the show today. It's going to be talking to us about that. So yay. I do want to remind you all that you can go over to Roku, Chromecast, Apple TV, Android TV, Amazon Fire, and YouTube to watch the videos. The podcasts are on Apple, Google, Stitcher, Spotify, Pandora, and our good friends at Inspired News Radio always have our podcasts on. Get over to ClarissaBurt.com because you are going to want to take a look at all of my media, plus the digital magazine lives there. It is intelligent media for the savvy entrepreneur. So let's get right to it. There's a lot to talk about and a lot to be mindful about with our brain health. Dr. Jeffrey Fannin's with us today. Hello, PhD and a neuroscientist, and a good friend of mine, lives here in Phoenix, Arizona, and I visited him recently, and we're going to get into that conversation as well. Great to have you on the show.
Oh, Clarissa, it's great to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Oh, you have so many exciting things going on. I know that you just came off of our good friend Greg Reed's Secret Knock, and you did a fabulous presentation there. And you've got another one coming up on the 26th of September that I want to make sure everybody knows about. That's the Superhuman Making the Invisible Visible. That's going to be online, and we're going to talk about that and how people can access that that online event. But you do an awful lot in bringing to the forefront brain science, brain health. It goes from everything from vibravision that you're going to tell us all about to how leadership is connected to neuroscience. And much more. So let's get started with wherever you want to get started with, maybe with the vibravision piece.
Sure, I'd be glad to talk about that. I'm very, very passionate about that and working with vibravision. So if anybody wants to see some videos on that, it's VIBRAVISION on YouTube. Lots and lots of videos out there. And we've been measuring the brains of these people. So for your audience that doesn't know anything about it, these are individuals who put bandages over their eyes, and then they put a blindfold over the top of that.
Right.
And then you can take colored bean bags and drop them in their hands, and they can tell you what the color is as fast as you can do that. They can read from a book, and tell you what pictures are in the book. They can take a greeting card that's in an envelope and read it to you. You can hold up shapes, circle, square, stars, that kind of thing. They can tell you what they are. They can you can give them a deck of cards, and they can put down and tell you the card that they're putting down and what it is. So they use their brains in a way that most of us don't use that.
Right.
People that we're working with, one fellow that's doing exceptionally well, he has no eyeballs, and so that was kind of an eye opener, pardon the pun,
right,
for me. To see somebody who has no eyeballs, and some of these other people, they have sight. So we're really talking about higher states of consciousness and how we're using in a very unusual format. And so we've been testing this, and I've been measuring these people for about 2 years now. And so I have a lot of data there to look at, and we do three-dimensional aspects of the brain while they're doing these things, so I can break it down and see, how do they actually do this? Because it is so phenomenal. But the interesting thing is all of us have the ability to do that. We just have never been taught how.
Right. So the people that know how, do they have more of a propensity at birth, or is it something that's acquired along the way? Is this something that is learned?
Well, it can be taught. So yes, it is a learned process. And there are many people who are taking the courses, from the vibravision people up in their school in Ogden, Utah.
Right.
And so, and they're also doing some online things and immersions and helping people. So we're trying to develop some protocols. So for example, if I start breaking this down and find protocol A, B, C, D, and we measure your brain because you want to do this and say, all right, you're at like protocol C. That's the one that's closest to you. So I'm going to start you at C rather than A, because you're going to learn faster from where you are than trying to take you all the way through the things that everybody has learned and understood about this.
Right, right. Wow. And then I know that we had a conversation. We had a lovely conversation. I was at your house. I mean, we could have talked. The books that are just the books that were behind me when I was sitting there were so similar. They were so, there was a plethora of books, by the way, but a lot of them were books that I had either, you know, read or that I have myself. So you and I had an awful lot in common on a lot of things. But I want to talk about your new book, which is called Commanding the Power of Thought. There's volume 1, volume 2, and I was there when they actually showed up at the door.
I know. We're sitting there talking, and the driver drives up, and I'm facing the window, and I'm seeing, it's like, oh my gosh, my books are here, you know, getting the author copies.
I know. I thought it was something I said. You jumped out of your chair and bolted to the front door, and I thought you were trying to get rid of me. But anyway, so yeah, the books are beautiful. Let's see them again. Come on, that wasn't enough. Let me see them. They look great. I love the cover. And then we have the forward by Greg Reed.
This is volume 1.
Right.
And the blue one is volume 2.
Okay. And what is it exactly that we are going to be able to learn by reading these books, Dr. Fannin?
Well, you know, I started writing this thing in 2008, traveling around the world, working with people. And, you know, so there are a lot of people that I've worked with and talking about things like, you know, commanding the power of thought. And so when I use that tagline to set up what I do, little did I know that there is so much more involved. And we talked about how we are connected, how our thoughts will hold us hostage, and what we need to do to deal with that. In terms of meditation, I talk about intuition in there because I was in the movie PGS, Your Personal Guidance System, Intuition, and explaining intuition in that movie. And if people want to get that, they can get it on Vimeo. But a lot of very interesting topics, and one of them that I think is really quite phenomenal in the chapter, I think is in volume 2, and talking about spooky action at a distance. So it was Albert Einstein and his relationship with Niels Bohr, and Einstein couldn't quite wrap his head around this whole thing called quantum mechanics.
Right.
And so all he could do was say it's spooky action at a distance. So at one of the events we did, and this happened at many events when I was working with Dr. Joe Dispenza, and we would have a bank of computers sitting out there, and it was, you know, they have helpers walking around helping people that are in the event. And you know how it's when somebody comes up behind you and you can tell that somebody is there, and that would happen, and I would turn around and look, and there would be nobody there, you know, and the other people on my team were having the same experiences. And then we talked with people after the event was over, and they were having the same thing happen to them. They were seeing these gigantic beings in the room, very loving beings. And this happened in multiple countries, multiple times, you know, where we would experience that. And it's my understanding that when we look at these other paradigms that are akin to us, we have a tuner, or, you know, our brain power.
Frequency.
And so it can only go up so far, and they can only come down so far. So they have to get within a short distance of each other. And we would measure the energy in the room, and each day it was like being around an electrical storm, you know, that you know something's going to happen. Your hair is standing on end and stuff like that.
Right.
And we could tell when these would get very close, and then people would start to have these mystical experiences in this. So I write about it in the book.
But why do these mystical phenomenon happen to some and not to others? Does that go back to the frequency that you talk about when you you tune in, and consciousness and meditation helps you get to that point?
Exactly. And meditation is a big part of that, just like it is with Viber Vision. So how we control our mind and where we're going. And after traveling around the world and doing like over 4,000 brain maps with people, the one thing I learned is most people have no idea how to meditate. And 2, it is a subjective experience. You usually don't have any way of knowing. You know, when I was working with Dr. Joe, and the first time I said, how do these people know they're doing it right?
Right.
You know, because you don't, you know, So it's a matter of learning where is your tuner in all of this, and that's why we do the brain maps,
Right.
and being able to increase a person's ability, their focus to go, because the broadcast may be happening at 100 hertz, 200 hertz on up, but your tuner may only be functioning from 0 to 60 hertz.
Right.
And it isn't that the broadcast isn't happening, it's just that you're not tuned into it.
Right. I want to go back to the book a second and remind everybody that you can find that on Amazon. And I'm going to throw your website up there too, thoughtgenius.com. You can get a lot of information over there, everybody. There's all kinds of videos and resources and different things to be able to find also Dr. Fannin. And he's pretty much everywhere on social. You can find him on Facebook. He's on Twitter, Thought Genius TM. I guess if we go over to the website, we'll be able to find all of the different socials. Right. LinkedIn is Dr. Fannin, PhD. He's on YouTube, Instagram. So go on over to the website. That's the website you see on the ticker right now. Again, you'll be able to find him on social everywhere, pretty much anywhere. It really is an interesting idea that somehow humanity, you hear all the time, we're really all one with the universe, and the universe is one with us, and we're all one. And how could be one? We'd be one if we're, 20 billion people on the planet or 8 billion people on the planet. How does that, I don't know if that really sinks in.
Well, yeah, let me explain that. We all have an energy field, and for the average person, the energy field goes out in all directions in about 3 feet. And so when I'm doing a brain map on somebody, I'll walk behind them and show them my energy field is interacting with your energy field.
Right.
And so the question becomes, it's a little bit like our cell phone. So when we have our cell phone and we are working with a cell phone, it creates an energy field around the cell phone. And then that energy field connects with the cell tower. Now, inside the energy field on our cell phone is the text, the voice conversation, the email, those kinds of things. The same thing happens with us. When we have energy and information, and I did a study back in 2010 and talk about this in the book, and I wanted to know how energy healing works. And so we had 60 known energy healers in this study, and we had a giver and we had a receiver, and we could measure the energy going between the two of them. And so I don't want to go into a lot of detail. If you want to know the whole entire experiment and the result of that, it is in the book, and it's online. It's not hard to find.
Again, you can find the books on Amazon, right? Everything's over on Amazon. Great. Okay, great.
Yeah, so that energy field is where we're connected. So when you walk into a room and you have a feeling about this person's very happy, they're upset, they're whatever they are, that's your energy field interacting with them. So I did a lot of work with Nassim Harriman, and I write about that in the book too. And he explains and developed a movie on that we are all connected, and we are. We are all very connected. And as we look at quantum physics more and more, we understand that there are part of our connection is there are no boundaries to that throughout the entire universe.
Right. I never understood the difference between quantum physics and quantum mechanics, but I guess that's going to be an answer for another day, because that might take a while.
That would take a while.
That would take a while. And one of the chapters of your book, I love it. It's called "Help! My thoughts are holding me hostage." Is that really true? I mean, are we really holding ourselves back just by thinking?
Actually, we are. We're giving in to the negative thoughts. And one of the things that a lot of people aren't aware of is that 80 to 85% of the thoughts you have today are going to be negative, and 95% of the thoughts you have tomorrow will be the same thoughts you had today.
Right.
So we keep going round and round in this loop. And I was very curious about that. It's like, why is it that happens? Why is it that God or source, or however you identify, would create a system where 80% of our thoughts are going to be negative? And so it's a matter of, we have to know what we don't want, right, in order to choose what we do want, right, and put our focus on what we choose. So it's kind of the yin and the yang. It's a universal law that is there, cause and effect. And so right, depending on what we choose and how we focus our energy, right, is what we're going to think about.
Well, you do talk about the universal laws. I know that, you suggest that they affect every one of us in every day in every way, whether we know it or not, right? So what is the universal laws and how do they affect us? How many of them are there? I think, aren't there 7 or 8 universal laws?
Well, yeah, 7 or 8 that we kind of know of. There may be many more than that.
Okay.
But as human beings, it's very important for us to understand, where our focus is. And I talk to people about this all the time. What are you tuned into? Are you tuned into the chaos, to the news reports and things that are offering negative news that get your brain thinking that way? So essentially, one of the things that happens, here's a little bit of physics. And I won't get too deep here. So
thank you for that.
If you have a thought, it has an energy and vibration. So it's vibrating at a certain amount. If you hold that thought for 17 seconds, science tells us that other energy and matter are going to be attracted to that. So if you hold that for 17 seconds, and what it's doing, it's amassing energy every time those come together. If you want to know more about that, go on YouTube and look up the double slit experiment, and it will help you understand that just a little bit more. But anyway, if you hold that all the way up to 68 seconds, now it's not just giving you energy in the waveform, but it now has enough energy that it can affect particle matter. And that's how we create our own reality. So when we look at law of attraction and things like that, and I talk about this in the book as well, of how do you stop this roller coaster ride?
Right.
You have some negative thoughts where you're putting resistance into the field, and now you're attracting some. So you have to get into the zone of receiving in order to keep that moving. And
well, if we create our own reality, so if someone were to go out today and, God forbid, get into a car accident, it's going to happen somewhere on the planet. How did they create that?
Well, it really depends on where their thoughts are. So if they're living in fear, what are they going to attract? Fearful things. So maybe they have, and I can't speak for all cases here, but just as an example, so maybe that person has a real fear of going someplace, driving on a freeway, whatever it is, but they're putting that energy out there, and guess what's coming back?
Right.
Something to be fearful
Same
about.
thing when someone's falling into depression.
Well, exactly. So we know that there's a part of the brain that will create what we call familial depression, or if a person has too much alpha in the front part of their brain, they're likely going to have depressive thoughts. So you have to raise that frequency up in order to do that. So I talk a little bit about those things in the book.
Right, the solfeggio frequencies, right.
Right. And being able, there are ways to bring that up in order to do. It really depends on what you think about. If your thoughts are holding you hostage, part of it is because you're allowing that to happen.
Yeah, and the solfeggio frequencies are just as easy as YouTube, and just go into, I want to raise my vibration, and put that into the search in YouTube, and it brings up, I can't even tell you how many.
Yeah,
videos.
You have to be careful with that a little bit. We did a study in when was it? About 2015. And we were looking at the solfeggio frequencies, and I write a whole chapter in the book of where those came from back in the 3rd century, and the Gregorian monks, and how we would have emotions and feelings, but it would trigger those. So we got together with a sound studio that could produce the right frequencies, because the ones on YouTube may not necessarily be the ones that you're getting. So when I'm working with somebody, I'm giving them what I call the real frequency, and so looking at those. And so when we're training the coherence of the brain and the heart, and there are 3 electromagnetic centers that are very important, so that very important in how we work with that. One is the electromagnetic center around our chakras, and that's why we measure a person's chakras to see what the energy is there. And then another one is the electromagnetic center around the heart, and the electromagnetic center around the brain. What a lot of people don't understand is the electromagnetic center around the heart is 60 times greater than the electromagnetic center around the brain. And there's a reason for that. So not only in our heart coherence, but there are over 4,000 neurites. And a neurite is like a neuron in the brain. It can think, it can learn, it can remember, it can send signals, all of those kinds of things. So when we're developing this energy field around us, not only does it need to have a vibration, what is the energy that we are putting out there? So if I'm using my brain, and I have a certain frequency that I live from contentment on up. So I have a chart in the book and talk about these. And so can a person who worries a lot, that frequency of worry, can they go from worry to love, to excitement, to passion? Yeah, they can. They just don't sustain it, because what they're thinking about 90% of the time are negative thoughts. And so that's the vibration that they live in. So
Right.
It's all about learning how to expand that vibration. What are you doing in your daily life to make that happen? So
Right.
these are courses that I'm putting together right now.
Absolutely. Really quickly, and we're at the close, but I know that I had asked you also about the correlation between a healthy brain and diet. Can you take a minute and just answer that? I know a minute's not enough, but
Yeah, I'll do as much as I can, but diet is very, very important. So one of the tests that I do with people, we poke their finger, take a little bit of blood, put it on a card, send it to the lab, and then we can look at that relationship between what your cells are doing and your brain function. And that's vitally important, because if you have a lot of omega-6s, processed foods and things like that in your diet, we will see a relationship between that and the omega-3s, which are the fatty acids that are in your cells and in your brain. So, I mean, I could go on for hours just about this subject alone.
So just
really
eat healthy and eat clean, basically.
Well,
Fruits,
yeah,
vegetables.
you need to eat clean. You need to have a balanced meal, and you need to pay attention to what you're eating, because sometimes we just eat whatever's convenient. I'm
Right.
like that. I do that sometimes, but then I'll catch
No.
myself and go, do you really want this box of Twinkies? No.
Oh, no.
I don't remember.
Oh,
It had to be back in the 60s or 70s that I had a Twinkie.
Right.
But anyway,
Right.
it's really about understanding what you eat, why you eat it, how it's affecting your body, the cells in your body. And if you understand any of Bruce Lipton's work, your cells have to be dynamic. They have to be in the right environment. So we have to create that environment for our cells. And nutrition is a very big part of that.
Nutrition is a huge part, absolutely, as much as staying hydrated, especially for those of us who live in Phoenix, Arizona, as Dr. Fannin well knows. You were very kind, sir, to give our listeners a gift, and that is the 5 Keys to Commanding the Power of Thought PDF. And I'm going to be attaching that to our video and getting that out to everybody that is on my social for sure. So I want to thank you for that very much. And that's the end of our show. If you'd like to add something before we go.
Just everybody should just pay attention to where they're at and what are you tuned into, and if you're not tuned into the right things, then you got to start thinking about what you can do in order to get your vibration up where you want to, where it feels good, where it's natural. And if you're not there, well, call me.
Absolutely. And you can get in touch again with Dr. Fannin, everyone, at thoughtgenius.com. Dr. Fannin, thank you again so much for your time, sir. Stay right there. Do not go away while I say goodbye to everybody and give them an appointment for next week here in the Limelight with Clarissa Burt. Bye for now. Thanks for listening to this episode of the In the Limelight podcast, intelligent media for the savvy entrepreneur. You can listen to this and all of my podcasts on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, Pandora, and Inspired News Radio. You'll find all of my videos and the In the Limelight digital magazine on clarissaburt.com. And don't forget to connect with me on social pretty much anywhere. Stay well until we meet again in the Limelight.